Hello and welcome to this latest edition of Bulls on Parade Talk. I am your host Joshua Sines, and today I have some interesting analysis from NFL Network draft analyst Mike Mayock that I want to share with you guys. But before I do that, and this was brought to my attention earlier this morning. And now I have the chance to, after reading, the analysis, after going through it all, now I have the time to share my thoughts with you guys. This was brought to my attention from an article. Well, first of all, it was from Mike Mayock, of course, but the Chronicle did a report on this as well. This was posted earlier today. And it was basically talking about NFL Network draft analyst Mike Mayock and his analysis of the top three quarterbacks in this class. And those are Blake Bortles, Teddy Bridgewater, and, of course, Johnny Manziel. Okay. So, the latest news that we've heard, I've already said this in an earlier video, that Blake Bortles has made the decision to throw. Before I get into the analysis of the quarterbacks in question, I just want to take a brief minute to kind of share with you guys the list of quarterbacks that have been invited to the Combine. Just so you guys, because let's face it, the Combine already starts this Saturday. Some guys are already leaving, already preparing to leave for Indy. But anyway. As we're preparing for this for this big weekend, I thought I'd give it the chance to share with you guys the list of quarterbacks. This is quarterbacks only that are going to be invited to the Combine, and I have a list right in front of me, and I'll share it with you guys. And the list is as follows. These are the quarterbacks that have been invited to participate at the NFL Scouting Combine this weekend. And those names are as follows: Blake Bortles, Taj Boyd, Teddy Bridgewater, Derek Carr, David Fales, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jordan Lynch, Johnny Manziel, Jeff Matthews from Cornell University, A.J. McCarron, Zach Mettenberger, Stephen Morris, Aaron Murray, Bryn Renner, the North Carolina quarterback, Tom Savage, the Pittsburgh quarterback, Connor Shaw, Logan Thomas, Dustin Vaughn, the West Texas A&M quarterback, Keith Wenning, who I believe is underrated, the Ball State quarterback. So those are the list of names that are going to be at the Combine, and some guys are going to throw, some guys aren't, as we've already discovered. So those are the names that are going to be appearing at the Combine and will be participating during the workouts. Now, back to the topic at hand. Mike Mayock took some time and basically studies tape for a living, and he looks at the top three quarterbacks in this class. And I have nothing but the most respect, nothing but respect for Mike Mayock and his analysis. Every time I need some kind of information on the draft, I always go to him first. Now, I don't believe he buys into a lot of hype. I believe he looks at players fairly. I believe he really has no. Now you can argue otherwise. If you want to argue otherwise, go ahead and tell me in the comments section. From what I've seen, I don't really see a lot of these guys really buying into the hype machine too much. But anyway, I have nothing but respect for Mr. Mayock, and during a media conference call, he basically he basically praised all these guys for what they bring to the table. But there's one thing that I do want to point out later, and I'll point that out later. But starting with Teddy Bridgewater, basically what he said about Teddy Bridgewater, he says right here, quote, he says, Bridgewater is the most ready to play NFL-style quarterback in this draft. Who's been saying that since day one? That's right. Coming into the season, I watched him play at Louisville at a high level with minimal talent for a while. I remain of the belief that he is the best quarterback in this class. And when he was asked about the depth of this draft class, he says, paraphrase right here, it says it's the deepest that he's seen in 10 years. You know? So, and the funny thing is, you know, you look at the Houston Texans, and he pointed out something that I hadn't even forgotten. You know, I pointed out that the Texans have the top pick in the first and second round, but what I really didn't notice is we have the top pick in each round. That's kind of crazy. So, that's something to really look ahead to as wow. It's something I had no idea. I really didn't know until I read this article. I'm like, wow, really? So, it's going to be interesting how we look at how we attack this draft. So, moving on to Blake Bortles and what Mike Mayock said about Blake Bortles. He says, quote, people think he has got the biggest arm. I'm not sure if he does or not, but I also think he's the least developed of the three. So, yeah. There's one, I've made a video, and you can go check that out, about me looking at Blake Bortles' skill set compared to the top 4 and the top 2 QBs in this class, from my perspective. That's just my opinion on those videos that I did earlier this year. Y'all can go check that out. So moving on to Johnny Manziel, you know, and this is the kind of stuff that I love to hear, especially from a guy that really has a lot to work on. You know, he says Blake Bortles is the least developed. Well, I look at Johnny, and I look at his tape, and he says this, and I'll read the quote to you first. He says, quote, the first tape I put in was September 14th against Alabama. And I put the tape down about 2 hours later, and I said, wow, that was awesome. It was really fun to watch. The kid makes throws. He allows his other players to make plays. So I never doubted that about him. He is a playmaker in college. He was a playmaker in college. He made a lot of things happen. He goes on to says this, quote, he says, I eventually got to the LSU and Ole Miss tapes, neither of which were really good tapes. Both of which, the common denominator for me, I felt, he got frustrated in the pocket. The more he was in the pocket, the more frustrated he got. He started to lose his accuracy. He started trying to escape the pocket way before he needed to. And I feel like he doesn't like being confined. He likes those open spaces. All I gotta say is well done. All I gotta say is thank you. Thank you. Because that is the one thing that people have raved about Russell Wilson about. Russell Wilson doesn't mind a muddy pocket. He can stand in there and make those throws. You saw it in the Super Bowl. You saw it in the Super Bowl when Denver tried to create pressure for Russell Wilson. He stood in there like a boss and made those throws. Made the necessary throws. Not necessarily with his legs, but with his arm. And you know, this brings me back to something that I remember from the 2012 draft class. Y'all remember that class, right? Andrew Luck, RG3, Brian Tannehill, Brandon Weeden, Brock Osweiler, Kirk Cousins, and of course my guy Case Keenum. But anyway, looking at these guys, looking at the draft class, and also don't forget Nick Foles. Now that I just remembered, the one thing that I remember about that draft class is when people were talking about Ryan Tannehill and Brandon Weeden and the way that they feel pressure in the pocket. And the one thing I remember looking at those two in particularly is that Ryan Tannehill, even though he was underdeveloped, even though he didn't have a lot of experience as a quarterback, because he was playing wide receiver. He has an ability to get rid of the ball. He had an ability to get rid of the ball quickly under pressure, and he feels it better than. And he was one of the best pressure quarterbacks of that class. Brandon Weeden was the worst. I looked at his pressure drops every time he was hit, sacked, or anything that had anything to do with pressure. Brandon Weeden graded the worst. Out of the top 7 quarterbacks in the draft class, he graded out as the worst. And that tells you something because, in the NFL, there's not always going to be those open spaces. You have to be able to make plays under pressure inside a muddy pocket because it's not always going to be clean. You have to be able to make those plays from within the pocket. And that is the one thing, everyone talks about Blake Bortles and his raw skills. Well, I never questioned his pocket presence. The one thing that I did question about him was his footwork. And y'all can go check out the full detail on that in my other video. But the one thing that I found out about Johnny, now, I'm not saying that Johnny's bad. Has he gotten better from year 1 to year 2 in college? Sure he has. But, he's not perfect. It's the one, and I noticed Mike Mayock used the word, quote, frustrated. Now, when I see an analyst like him use the word frustrated in the pocket, it kind of gives you a little bit of a taste of, what's going to happen at the next level if his offensive line doesn't protect him. What's going to happen at the next level when all of a sudden he doesn't have those open spaces that he had in college? What's going to happen when he's not, when he's unable to run around in the backfield against the top athletes in the world? It's the one thing I worry about with a guy like him. Everyone talks about, he's a great playmaker. Well, is he going to be able to do that in college? I haven't seen a lot of those guys do that in college. They had to learn how to make plays from the pocket. Eventually, Michael Vick, we all saw what happened to Michael Vick when he came back out of prison. He became now he's not perfect either. But I'm just saying, when Michael Vick first came into the league, his first instinct was to run. It was either a one read or run. That's the one thing I worry about Johnny Manziel. And Johnny Manziel, I watched his tape. He's not really a progression reader from what I saw. He's a one read kind of guy, then he starts running. And when it's not there, he gets frustrated. According to Mike Mayock. Now, he did go on to say he's got that it factor. And yeah, sure he does. So did RG3. I just can't stand the idea of people giving him the kind of ride that people gave Vince Young. I've been on record saying that multiple times. I feel like we're back to where we started as an organization. I feel like we're back to the 2002 class, or even the 06 draft. I feel like we're just repeating history, and the fan base is not learning from these mistakes, particularly those. 06 wasn't a mistake, as we all. What I mean by mistake in terms of the 06 draft is that people were like, Like right away, people were hyping Vince Young. I would think that these people would learn by now. College success means nothing. You don't believe me? Ask Case Keenum. He is the NCAA's all-time leading passer. Say whatever you want about him, but he's in the record books. And look at him. People look at him accordingly. You know, I watched his first snap all the way from. I watched him. I watched every snap he made in college from day one. Now, and people have the nerve to say he doesn't even deserve to be drafted, but they put Johnny Manziel, you know, as a top 5 pick of the draft. Are you kidding me? And people, and also, you know, back to the Vince Young thing. You know, he came off one of the biggest national championship performances ever by some people, and you know, there were questions about him coming out of college, and you know, and although he did go 31-17 as a starter at Tennessee, he proved to not have the skill set to be a consistent starter. And we all saw what happened there. Now, you can all give me the argument, oh, he was playing for a coach that didn't want him, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. If you don't got it, you don't got it. That's my take. So, you know, looking at this, it goes back to what I said about these fanboys, and I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I won't. So I won't. I won't repeat myself because I've already gone on a little rant of mine in my last episode, and I don't want to take too much time on this one, but just all I'm saying is you look at this analysis and you really have to wonder, is he really worthy of the top pick of the draft? I'd be scared. Actually, let me rephrase that. I am scared. I'm scared of what might happen when he's taken number 1 overall. You know, earlier today I was watching on the NFL Network, top 10 draft busts of all time. You know, and I look at guys like Ryan Leaf, and I have said from the beginning, Johnny Manziel is just another Ryan Leaf waiting to happen. Another thing is, you know, there was this one, I can't remember his name. He was a running back, I believe, coming out of college. I believe he came out of Ohio State. I'm not 100% sure on that. I have to go back and watch it again. But the point that I'm trying to make to you is this. The guy got in trouble in college. The guy got in trouble. You know, he was arrested for assaulting his ex-girlfriend. And you know, there were character issues. There were people questioning his character and for those of you that know what I'm talking about, tell me in the comment section who that is, because I honestly cannot remember to save my life. But there were character issues about him coming out of college, and one guy said, "You think money is going to fix that?" And in relation to Johnny Manziel, he's got money. In relation to NFL to that, he's got money. You think all that's going to change who he is? Like I said, if he does, more power to him. I will stand on this platform, on this simulcast platform, and give him and applaud him. I'm on. If I'm not on record yet, I'll be on record now. If he enters the league and really shows me something, I will be on this platform. I'm looking into my camera right now, and I'm saying, if he comes out and proves me wrong, I will applaud. I will start this episode after my introduction with an applause to him. But that's yet to be seen. So, again, it's not going to, I haven't changed. I have not flipped on my opinion about my fear of Johnny Manziel as a prospect. He just frightens me. Now, while his upside may be there, it's the argument with RG3 and Andrew Luck. Who do you want? A guy with upside or a guy that has the skills now to come in and give you something hopeful for the next 15, 20 years? The upside may be there, but you don't know. You're looking at his skills now. And to draft based on upside, it gets some people in trouble. Some are actually good at grooming these guys. Some can actually do it. Some can't. That's my point. To these people that think they can, it gets them into trouble. And that's what makes me worry. Now, there are guys in this league right now that are offensive minds and think they can do it. So we'll see. But a lot of these organizations are either starting over or are rebuilding. And what I mean by that is, they have some pieces in place, but they just need like one more piece and then they're good. Some organizations, new coach, new front office, new philosophy. That's what I mean. When I mean like starting over and or rebuilding. It depends on the franchise. That's all I'm saying with that. So, in conclusion to this, I took this analysis for Mike Mayock really, really close because that is exactly what I have been saying about these guys for a while. It's exactly the kind of thing I've been saying. I never believed Johnny Manziel was worth the number one pick in the draft. Now, I always believed he was a late first to second round pick. But like I've said on other occasions, the problem in this draft with this depth, and the thing is, there's a lot of depth. He's right. I looked at this class, and looking at this class, there's a lot of depth, especially at the quarterback spot. I took some time to look at Jimmy Garoppolo from Eastern Illinois. When I watched his tape, believe it or not, I said, wow. I would not be surprised if the Texans looked at taking him with the first pick in the second round. If we don't get a quarterback in the first round. That's what I'm saying about a guy like him. This class is very deep, but like I said, the problem with these hyped QBs, especially Johnny Manziel, it goes back to my last episode. Again, need versus talent. And you can go check out that hour-long episode that concludes with probably some of my best work on my channel. So, this whole thing is really gonna get very interesting as we approach draft day. So, that pretty much does it here on this edition of Bulls on Parade Talk. Thank you all so very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. I'd appreciate it very much. In the comment section below, tell me what you guys think about Mike Mayock's analysis. Do you think it's right? Do you think it's wrong? Do you disagree? Do you believe in this pre-combine analysis? Now, remember this: we still got the combine to come. Still got pro day. Still got all these workouts to look forward to. What do you think of this analysis before the workouts and before the interviews? Tell me what you think in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you guys. For more Houston Texans coverage provided by yours truly, please go ahead and subscribe to this YouTube channel. I'll be here covering all the latest regarding your Houston Texans all year long. Finally, please be sure to check out my Bulls on Parade Talk podcast on TalkShoe.com if you haven't already. The full link to that podcast will be in the description below this video for those of you that are watching on YouTube. And also, to those that are listening on the podcast, the full link to this YouTube video will be on this episode's info section on the podcast website. If you have any questions or concerns regarding anything, whether it's Texans, YouTube, or podcast related, go ahead and send me a message. I will do my best to reply as soon as possible. As always, this is your host Joshua Signs, signing off.